Hey there, everyone. This is Dan from the Strength Coach Tutor. Hope you guys are all doing well. Realize I've been off of YouTube for a little bit here, but looking to try and get back into the groove of things. So, something I've been noticing lately, and something that actually urged me to do an Instagram story about, is chest anatomy and bicep anatomy. And so, there's been a lot of confusion in regards to some of the anatomical terms, language, and muscle identification for these two body regions or parts, if you will. And so that's what we're going to go through today. We're going to go over pec anatomy and bicep anatomy. So let's go ahead and start off with pec anatomy. So when it comes to pec anatomy, there's a lot of confusion in terms of what the difference is between the pec minor and the pec major. Well, we also find a lot of students and even professionals as well calling what we refer to as the clavicular and sternal fibers of the pec major. Most often, a lot of people call those clavicular fibers of the pec major the pectoralis minor, and then the muscle fibers of the sternal region or the sternal origin of the pec major. They call those either the pec major or they call them the lower fibers or whatever it may be, right? So typically, that's where a lot of the confusion is, that the pectoralis major has two different heads, or two different starting points, if you will. All right, so we can see the clavicular head is coming off of the clavicle right along here, and where they call it sternocostal, you can call it sternal, whatever, as long as you're referring to the same region here, right? You can see how this muscle fiber orientation is starting off of the sternum, which you can see a little bit better here on the left side of this picture. Those muscle fibers are originating there, and then as you can see, they have that common insertion point, which ends up going to the lesser tubercle or lesser tuberosity of the humerus. Okay, so again, in the pec major and the both heads are really responsible for the typical motions or movements that we are familiar with the pectoralis, whether that's shoulder horizontal adduction, whether it's flexion, a little bit of internal rotation, etc. Right? Those are the movements that we are familiar with in terms of regarding to the pec major with its two heads. Now, what the pectoralis minor actually is it's a different muscle in and of itself. It's completely different, has a separate set of origin, insertion, action, you name it. So we can see here, right, what's happened here on this left side is that this whole pec major has just been cut away, right? All the muscles, everything else has been removed, so that way this pectoralis minor is by itself and easily visible. So we can see here that the origin of the pectoralis minor is on this little bony protuberance here that we see. And so that is what we call the coracoid process, which comes off of the scapula. Right? So right here is looking like it would be the acromion process, and this right here would be the acromioclavicular ligament, that little white piece. And so therefore that's the AC joint or the acromioclavicular joint. Directly underneath there, though, right, we have the coracoid process, and this is the origin site of the pectoralis minor. All right, so it's originating there, and then as we come down, it's attaching to the ribs, right? So in this picture, right, it shows it's attaching to ribs. Let's see, 3, 4, 5. All right, attaching to ribs 3, 4, and 5. All right, so that's the insertion point. What the pectoralis minor does in terms of its actions, it helps with protraction and depression of the shoulder and the scapulothoracic joint, okay? So again, two completely separate muscles, two completely different sets of origins and insertions and actions, all right? So whenever you talk about these muscles with other professionals or with your clientele, whoever you're working with, your athletes, educate them on this, that there is a difference. And especially when it comes to if you ever mentor other upcoming professionals, educate them on the importance of this as well, because these are completely two different muscles. So now let's go ahead and start looking at the bicep anatomy. So this picture here is showing us really what I want you guys to know and know the difference between some of the different bicep muscles, if you will, on the elbow. So I apologize, the picture's a little blurry. This was the best representation, though, of what I was able to find online, and I think this is someone taking a photo from a textbook. But beyond the point, this is a great, I think, picture, and does a good job of showing the difference between these muscles. So here, there's a lot of confusion, like, is there a difference between like an upper and lower bicep? What are these different bicep muscles, etc. Where I'm here to tell you first that there's no upper and lower bicep, right? There's an left and a right, there's a medial and a lateral if you really want to talk about it in that reference, which is what we're going to refer to here as the biceps brachii, right? Our main biceps muscle that we all really know. The biceps brachii does have a medial and lateral portion, or really a short head and a long head. So this part, see these two strands up here that kind of separated, that they kind of come down as one towards the bottom, but up top they have two different insertion points. So what we have here on the outside part, we have the long head of the biceps brachii, which attaches into the supraglenoid tubercle of the glenoid fossa, really the top portion of the glenoid rim, if you will. And then we have the biceps brachii short head, which is going to originate on that coracoid process. And again, remember, the pec minor is now coming this oblique orientation away from that biceps brachii, the short head. So those are two muscles that are originating on that coracoid process. So this is the biceps brachii, right? We have these two muscles, they originate at the shoulder essentially, and then come down towards the elbow, right? There's no upper and lower portions. There's a left and a right, or a medial and a lateral, if that's how you want to talk about it, okay? Now, because especially with the long head of the biceps, it is crossing the shoulder joint, it does help out a little bit with shoulder flexion. Not a ton, but it does help. But of course, its primary role is elbow flexion and supination. So the biceps brachii is a supinator and an elbow flexor. Now, the only argument that you can make that there's a, quote, lower bicep is if you're going to start referring to this muscle here, which is the brachialis, all right? But again, there's no upper portion, right? Because this is kind of encompassing your entire upper arm. So I'm not really sure where people get the upper bicep terminology or reference to. I'm not entirely sure, but with the brachialis, right, you can see how this muscle, what's happened here is that the biceps brachii long and short heads have been cut away, and underneath is what we have left over as this brachialis muscle. And this is actually what we refer to as the true elbow flexor, because this muscle only acts as an elbow flexor, just flexes the elbow, doesn't do anything else. You can see how it originates on the middle half of the anterior middle half, if you will, of the humerus, and it attaches down, it attaches into that distal bicep tendon, into that radial tuberosity, all right? And that's about it there. Now, the other elbow flexor that we do have is the brachioradialis, which is primarily on your forearm, right? It has this nice muscle belly on the top half of your forearm, and then it has the tendon comes down that attaches down towards the styloid process of your radius, all right? And typically, right, that muscle does elbow flexion when it's in that neutral or hammer grip position, all right? So it does do elbow flexion when it's in that position, but it also helps us return our form into neutral. So if we're in pronation, it helps us return to neutral or that hammer grip. And if we're in supination, it helps us return to that hammer or neutral grip position, all right? So it always helps us return to neutral. And when we are in neutral, as if you're doing like a dumbbell hammer curl, we're going to end up recruiting that brachioradialis as well. Well, I hope you guys all found that useful. If you guys do have any more suggestions of videos for me to make or topics that you need help with, please put a comment down below, and I will happily make videos. I'm looking for more ideas so that way I can help you the best way possible. If you guys need more one-on-one attention, or you need more practice exams or questions or other videos to look at that are more formal, please go ahead and check out my website, thestrengthcoachtutor.com, where you can sign up for tutoring sessions and also join my online classroom that has over 300 plus practice questions and a whole self-paced course for you to go through that has videos literally talking about every single little thing that you would have to know for the exam. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys soon.